Hey guys, before we start with the Scrum and all the formal details about it, I just want to talk about the origin of Scrum and how it started. Basically, as you can see, this formation here is called Scrum, and I'm mentioning it because a lot of us are non-native English speakers, so many of us don't even know that this formation is called uh, Scrum, and this formation is the source of Scrum, the methodology. The first time I came across a Scrum term was in the context of software development, and it was later I discovered that this is a specific formation which is in rugby and American football, and this sport is the root cause of this methodology. So it's the information is more of trivial, but uh, it's good, right? If you when you know the source, it's you can relate to it. So basically, Scrum was first time conceptualized by Hirotaka Takuchi and Ikujiro Nonaka in 1986 for product development in their HBR article. HBR basically mean Harvard Business Review article, and my apologies for getting these names if I got them wrong. Now, they described cross-functional team organization based on moving forward in a layered approach. So, these professors talked about Scrum in '86. You can imagine it was way back in '86, but the concept was then later further codified as the Scrum methodology in 1990s by Ken Schwaber and Jeff Sutherland in their own organization, that is Easel Corporation. So you can say that from '86 to this '90s, this was kind of a dormant phase as far as Scrum is concerned. And it was after 2000 when Ken Swaber and Mike Beadle came up with agile software development with the Scrum book. And I think earlier it was largely manufacturing sector, so Scrum as a concept couldn't got so much traction because manufacturing sector is very old and the processes are very established. In fact, the Kanban agile software approach is also coming from the manufacturing sector, where the source is Toyota's own methodology. But that is that is out of scope for this course. Now coming back to Scrum, Scrum gained momentum. You can say in 2000 and after that. So if we look at the classic definition of Scrum, if you Google Scrum, you will get this. This is basically an ordered formation of players used to restart play, in which the forwards of a team form up with arms interlocked and heads down and push forward against a similar group from the opposing side. The ball is thrown into the scrum and the players try to gain possession of it by kicking it backward toward their own side. So that's the actual literal meaning of a scrum, which is used in the rugby. Now, this approach of human interaction is the prime focus in case of Scrum Agile methodology. Because if you look at the waterfall, it's very bureaucratic. It's all about processes, documentations, tools. So it's like tools and documents over people. Whereas in Scrum, it's all about people, and documentation is still there, but it's more into development and the people and self-sufficient team rather than some bureaucratic structure dominating, or rather you can say adding a lot of unnecessary weightage on the actual work. So Scrum is a lightweight agile software development methodology. As it is agile, focus is on incremental and iterative development. Incremental and iterative is also sometimes addressed as inspect and adapt, which simply means that you develop a small piece of the software, review it, and based on the findings of the review, develop further. So if you look at any computing or smartphone platforms like Android operating or iOS, they all have evolved over a period of time. With each version, they have delivered better features and performance. This evolution is iterative and incremental. So if you look at the current Android OS N or latest iOS, you can say that last 5 10 years, whatever time they have taken, it's like a project. where each release was a sprint. In each sprint, they delivered something, they analyzed it, and they collected data, and then based on the feedback, they developed it further. So now it's far more efficient than what it was, let's say, 5 years ago. So that's how you develop projects and products in Scrum, or for that matter, any other agile methodology. So Scrum focus more on people collaboration and self-organized team rather than a strict top-down hierarchical, structure. So uh, if you have worked on waterfall methodologies, as I have mentioned earlier, it's all about bureaucratic, and there are a lot of unnecessary process and weightage on the team. So you will have all kind of managers who will call the shots. It doesn't happen so in case of Scrum, and teams are far more autonomous and independent as far as making decisions is concerned. So you will have different rules, and responsibilities are clearly assigned, and nobody will interfere. So Scrum focus more on actual development and less on formal documentation in comparison of waterfall or formal hierarchical setup. So and for documentation, I won't say it's completely gone, but yes, I mean it's significantly less. In case of waterfall, we will have BRD, DDD, then test plans, and those kind of things. Whereas in Scrum, so you have a product backlog which is very simpler, and then you create a sprint backlog by taking few requirements from product backlog, and then that become sprint backlog. So it's like having a very high level documentation, and these requirements are called user stories because everything is mentioned from the perspective of the user. So you will say, let's say you are a cashier in a bank and who want a machine to count the bills. So you will say, as a cashier, I want a machine to count the bills. So count the bills will become the functionality, and as a cashier, it's your role. So that's how things are organized in Scrum. So instead of having multiple documents, you will have one document. Requirements will be more simpler. They are more like statements, you can say. So practically, I mean, all the companies will have their own formats and templates with with their company's logo and those kind of things. But it's fair to assume that you are looking at a significant reduction in the level of documentation. In short, it's all about people over tools, people over work, and people over development. Or rather, I mean, not the last statement, people over development, but yes, I mean, people driving development rather than the documentation driving development. So it's all about always keep the ball rolling. So a wheel rolling. It's a theory that and then if we talk about the basis of Scrum, then it's basically founded on empirical process control theory. So empiricism states that experience is knowledge, and decisions should be made on known. So basically, if you look at a waterfall approach, let's say it's a 6 month project, 6 month long project, it's a big project. Now I'm taking the example of big project because the actual difference in terms of quality you will notice only in the bigger project. If there is a very small change, let's say 40 hours effort is needed to code and unit test, then you won't see that difference, or 80 hours. The actual difference between waterfall and Scrum comes when the project is either a bit longer or the change is a bit more complicated and or new. In those cases, again, I mean, it's like in waterfall you are asking a user to guess what exactly they need. Now the main business need is clear to primary stakeholders, so they will state that. But a lot of requirements, I mean requirements which are at the lower level but significant, are not clear to them. They can only find out those requirements after the actual product is delivered. So you will have a lot of defects and enhancements, change requests in case of waterfall up projects, because nobody couldn't guess those kind of changes. So they will have a product based on the existing requirements or whatever they could find. They will deliver it, and then they will discover more changes due to experience. In Scrum, we are avoiding that. We are building a small chunk of the same project, same product, delivering it to the user, and then asking user to review that and come up with more information. And as some information is available, user can have better view, better understanding of what exactly is needed. So that's how you build in an iterative approach. You deliver a small piece, use that piece to generate more information, then deliver more piece, then again use that to create or generate more information. So that's how it happens. And in case of empiricism, there are three pillars: transparency, inspection, and adoption. So I have already talked about that. Inspection and adoption is all about the core of Scrum, where you inspect is basically review, and you are not inviting some auditor or some other team to inspect. Here the Scrum team is inspecting, because as I mentioned, Scrum is all about automated or self-sufficient teams, so they are inspecting the product, and then based on the requirements, they are adapting to the change. So let's say you delivered a small chunk, then you figured out few more changes were needed. You will include those changes as user stories in the future sprints, and then they will be delivered. So that's how you inspect and adapt. And as far as transparency is concerned, it's basically honesty and transparency among the team members. It's more of a principle which you need to follow if you are looking to implement Scrum in your team. So if we look at the overview, then it's all about reducing the formal structure, hindering communication between team members. Because if you see, conventional teams are very bureaucratic, and everybody, there's a lot of politics involved. I mean, people don't communicate because it may not be in their interest. And in Scrum, you break down everything, you remove all the bureaucracy, and you bring the team members together, closer to each other. So that's why Scrum focus on actual work and not formalities. Scrum values can be best understood by reviewing its components. Scrum methodology is all about continuous improvement through inspect and adapt. So basically, as I mentioned earlier, you will deliver things, review it, and then adapt. And Scrum can be divided into three components. I will cover them in details, but these are the three, you can say, formations, and these three are the building blocks of Scrum. Scrum rituals are the processes, Scrum artifacts, and Scrum roles. I have separate videos on these, and I will talk about them in detail there, but you can consider them as building blocks of Scrum. Once you add all of these three, you will have a Scrum project. So Scrum is all about reducing team frictions. As I mentioned earlier, it's focus a lot on interaction and removing the politics or any negative forces from the team. So it's all about increasing synergy among team members. Traditional teams are dominated by bureaucratic structure, and therefore there is a lot of politics. Politics in traditional team is, you can say, the byproduct of bureaucratic structure. If you allow team members to stay creative and take decisions and be self-sufficient, it has been seen that their performance is a lot better than traditional teams. So it is because roles and responsibilities are not clear in traditional teams. Various team members or managers fight with each other. They create conflict because that's how they survive. Whereas in Scrum, things are much clearer. It's focused on improving the coordination among team members. So now no human interaction can be free of all kind of politics, but when you are clearly defining everyone's role, probability of friction goes down because there is no reason to fight. So if we talk about roles, we have Scrum product owners, masters, and the team members in Scrum teams. Now, Scrum product owner is having different set of responsibilities than Scrum master, and members of a Scrum team have enough visibility to showcase their work. So everybody is motivated to perform well. Therefore, team's net output is synergistic and more than the sum of individual contributions. Whereas in case of, let's say, traditional waterfall methodology, a project manager is working with business analyst on the deliverables and the requirements. In case of Scrum, product owner is going to decide what will be delivered in which sprint. Scrum master is not going to have any say there. Now, of course, practically they will share their feedback, team members will share their feedback, but the final call is made by product owner, not a scrum master. So that's why when it comes to roles and responsibilities, once you define everyone's role, these things are a lot better. Scrum further improves the work culture by reducing the formalities associated with the team and development work. Like instead of having long meetings where they will write some kind of emails to each other and things like that, they will have 15 minutes daily sprint meeting. It's also called as daily stand-up meetings and this the purpose of meeting is to sort out any issues. I mean, there are only three questions, and I will talk about them later. But point is, there are three questions, and you will gather enough information with those three questions and move on. And in these 15 minutes, objective is to resolve issues. Whereas if you have these 60 minutes meeting, then you have 20 individuals. They all are trying to gain some kind of show their efforts and make some name there. I mean, those kind of things add to the extra weightage. So that's why, I mean, having these regular daily 15 minutes meetings, Scrum does focus on improving the overall productivity of the team. So that's it for now. I will talk about these Scrum rituals or artifacts or roles, which are the building blocks, in later videos. For now, I mean, it will further confuse you if we talk about more details here. So thank you.